Hey. Urban Politics. I'm your humble host, Phys Ed Music. Let's get right into it like a car and drive. We got all types of politics to talk about today. Let's start off by talking about the first 31 days in of Mr. Joseph Biden. Mr. Joseph R. Biden. He went on and on about the $15 minimum wage when he was trying to get up in there, and he was saying now looks like it's not going to happen. There hasn't been an appetite for that in a long time. I don't think there's ever been an appetite for that. I was going to say a long time. I don't think there's ever been an appetite for that. You're always going to have those people trying to stop that. And I'm sick of hearing it too, like a lot of liberals are. And like, he ran on it, but there's him being on Moderate Joe, trying to appease that middle. So he's not necessarily in the mood to do something which I guess a lot of people would call super progressive. Raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, which is just a minimum wage. Is it progressive? Yes. Does it need to happen? Yes. Will it happen? Probably not, because Joe Biden is a moderate, which I tried to tell everybody that, even some of my Republican buddies. It's interesting how Walmart says that they're going to implement a $15 an hour pay rate. So they're going to raise their minimum wage to $15 an hour, Walmart. They're also closing a lot of Walmarts all around the country, all around, I think, the world, actually. I had seen a documentary a couple of nights ago about Walmart, and they were talking about why they were unsuccessful in Germany and places like that. So this is something I guess that they probably had on the horizon for a while, that they're going to close a lot of those Walmarts. But in closing some of those Walmarts, that'll allow them to pay the people who still work at a Walmart that is open a legitimate livable wage, which is $15 an hour. So I think that's a good thing. If they have to cut back on Walmarts to be able to pay people a livable wage, which they probably could have did without doing that, but whatever, if that's how they justify it and that's what they're doing, I still give a thumbs up to that. And I'm just like, it's sad that big business is taking a deeper step than government. And even with this $15 an hour minimum wage that Joe wanted to bring on, they were going to do it and they was going to piecemeal it. It wasn't going to be all one big hit, $15 an hour, boom, like tomorrow. It was going to start off at I think $9 an hour, and then it was going to raise until eventually get to $15 an hour, I think in 2025 or something like that. But now that's not even happening or whatever. That won't even be a part of this $1.9 trillion stimulus that's to come. So there's that. It is what it is. They were saying that Joe, he could have signed legislation that would have forgiven $10,000 of student debt for Americans. And he could still do that. He just hasn't done it. And why not? That right there would take care of a lot of poverty in America. They said a lot of these student debts is what's adding to the poverty in America. What's adding to people getting out of college, fresh out of college, and they got debt. And it's this student loans. And they said he could have signed something to forgive at least up to $10,000 of it. And he hasn't done it. He didn't do it. He hasn't done it. We'll see what happens. It looks like I said, on Moderate Joe, he got up in there. He started signing some things. He started overturning some of Trump's madness. He probably went out here, had some talks with some business leaders, had some of them get in his ear and said, hey, that minimum wage will cripple us. We can't do that. And now he's, kind of wavering on that. Like, oh, now he's having a different opinion on that minimum wage. So we'll see what happens with that. But unfortunately, we're probably not going to get that. A friend of mine who watches the show, and he'll know who I'm talking about as soon as I say the comment, he told me, you're not going to get both. He said they knew they wasn't going to get both. Joe Biden, you either going to get that $15 an hour, or you're going to get the $1,400 stimulus. But you're not going to get both. And he didn't get both. And I was hoping we'd get both because we need both. Both would be appropriate. But, like I said, my good friend, he said, what's up? You know what I'm saying? It's going to be one or the other. So I guess they're going with the $1,400 stimulus. Anyway, moving on. Right now, Joe Biden's Justice Department is running interference for Betsy DeVos. I don't understand this. She illegally continued to collect payments from citizens. She's facing a lawsuit, but the Joe Biden Justice Department is making it to where she does not or she will not be deposed, which means she doesn't have to give a statement in this case, where she defrauded Americans, where she was steadily taking payments and she was told to not do as such. And for whatever reason, and this is some holdover from the Trump administration, obviously, and for whatever reason, Joe Biden's Justice Department is cutting tough for her. They're running interference for her. I don't get it. I don't understand it. But once again, Joe Biden is a moderate. I've said that. I've been said that. And I say that being a fan of the man. I dig Joe Biden. I think he's a good dude. But at the end of the day, he's a politician and he's a moderate. So he's going to want to play that middle. So he's going to want to make both sides happy. And you can't do that in real life. But it is what it is. Moving on. Let's talk about this idiot. Something that's been going on. This is fresh news right here. This just happened extremely recently. Ted Cruz goes to Cancun while Texas is going through it. Here it is. Texas is wrapped up in one of the worst disasters ever. There's no water, no heat. People are dying. Flooded homes. This dude runs off to Cancun. Del Rio, which is a border town, they said got 11 inches of snow overnight. 11 inches. There's no water in the stores. Water is unsafe to drink. So there's no water in the stores. They can't even drink the tap water because of failing infrastructure in Texas. The tap water is unsafe to drink. And then they're being told to boil water. Vaccine sites are now being turned to water sites because they say, yeah, people do need the vaccine or whatever. But, you know what I'm saying? They also need water right now, more than even the vaccine, which is like, what? But yeah, I could believe it because it's a mess over there in Texas. If you haven't been paying attention, if you've been living under a rock, they got hit hard by storms. They weren't ready for this. They usually don't get weather like that. Welcome to global warming, which the right claims ain't going on. Obviously it is. Talk to Texas about global warming. Why are they getting unprecedented amounts of snow? But they are, and they're not ready to deal with it. They can't deal with it. They need the federal government to step up. I think Mr. Biden has finally declared it a disaster site or whatever and got FEMA in the mix, but it's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? And all this is going on. Ted Cruz thinks it's a good time to take a little trip. And we'll get into that. Hold on, though. But let me talk about some things that Texas is doing right, or some people are doing right by Texas. AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, one of my favorite politicians, she's raised $1 million, probably more than that now, for Texans. I think she had a GoFundMe. It said $1 million a couple of days ago. I bet you it's more than that, though. So hats off to her. Beto O'Rourke, they said that he has organized hundreds of thousands of senior wellness checks. Yes, sir. And that guy don't even hold public office no more, if I'm not mistaken. He's just a citizen like me and you, but look at what he's doing for Texas. While all this is going on, Ted Cruz, this guy, he gets on there and he says they were trying to be good parents. Him and his wife, I think her name is Heidi, trying to be good parents. You know, their girls come to them and say that school's been canceled. Can we get out of this snow? Can we get out of this ice, daddy? Can we go somewhere nice, daddy? And this guy is like, yeah. So, you know what I'm saying? I took him to Cancun, but, you know, I immediately felt like it was a bad decision. Really? That's what he goes say. He immediately felt like it was a bad decision. I guess so, Ted. Yeah, you immediately felt like it was a bad decision when you start looking on your Twitter feed and you see everybody and their mama going in on you because here you are skipping town while your constituents, people who voted for you, are going through the worst crisis of their lives. You decided it was a good time to get some sun with the girls and your wife. For real? So, whatever. And this guy wasn't even low-key about it. He's at the airport. Of course, people taking pictures of that. They loading it to their Instagram feeds. I saw it. You saw it. The whole world saw it. This guy is super hot doing stuff like that. People are mad about it. Even Republicans was mad about it. So, you know, he's going to say we were trying to be good parents. Nobody's believing that crap. Nobody's believing it. And then how about this? They said that his wife, they got records from a group chat that she was in, and in the group chat, she had told friends of hers that they would be going from Wednesday to Sunday. So his plan was to be going from Wednesday to Sunday. When this thing got out and he got hot, all of a sudden he said, I'm just going down there for the night to drop my girls and the wife off, and then I'm coming back that night. because I got to be here with Texans, and I got to be on the phone. I got to be getting things right, for my people. Come on, man. Come on, Ted. Too little, too late. He's raunchy. He's real raunchy with that. Really? This is what you do? This is what you do. While people are in Texas, I've seen homes flooded. I know you saw the picture on the internet with the guy whose ceiling lamp and chandelier was covered in icicles hanging down. It's an iconic picture now. It's just ridiculous. It's sad. And there's a lot of reasons for what Texas is going through. Maybe we'll get into that in other shows, but I think a lot of it just has to do with Texas always being on that wanting to secede from the government. Well, now you see what happens when the government ain't necessarily there to help you, or your things aren't federally regulated. I'm talking about their power system. You can Google that and you'll see what I'm referring to. But that's my point. When you act like you don't need the federal government's help, don't get in dire straits and then want the federal government's help. I tell people all the time, you always going to need the federal government because they got more money than you. The government's got the money. The only people with more money than the government is who? Big business. So if you could get an Apple or or a Facebook to help you, fine. But if not, you're going to need the government because as far as money goes, big business, government, then whoever else. Probably then Bezos, and then keep it going back from there. Anyway, moving on. I want to talk about Mr. Biden. Let's get back on him. Because let me tell you something. People always come at me and I tell them all the time, I say, yeah, I'm an independent that leans to the left. Oh, yeah. But every time on your show, all you want to do is talk about Joe Biden and what he's doing good and dot. No, if he's doing good, I want to call that out. I want to get at some love. You know what I'm saying? I want to give him the kudos for his good actions. But then when things aren't necessarily going right in his administration, I also am going to critique that as I'm doing right now. So now I want to talk about Mr. Biden and the schools. He's going to talk about in the first 100 days, he wanted to open schools. That was lofty goals. Them lofty goals. And obviously not coming to fruition. I'm not going to lie. When I heard it, I was like, yeah, whatever. And that's what politicians do. Politicians sell you pie in the sky so they can get in there and do the little bit of good that they can do. So anyway, moving on. The CDC put out guidelines for safe reopening of schools, but also said schools should not reopen if they're in high outbreak areas. Really? High outbreak? If you haven't noticed, all of America is a high outbreak area. So that means pretty much that no schools can open anywhere safely, right? Listen, 90% of these schools are in high outbreak areas. So what does that mean? Schools, if you open it in a high outbreak area. So that's how that goes. So the CDC put out all this stuff. They probably said, yeah, if teachers are wearing PPE, if the kids are wearing PPE, face masks, maybe some gloves, sanitizing everything, yada, yada, all that stuff, all the bells and whistles. That's cool, and we should be doing that. But at the end of the day, if this is a high outbreak area, kids probably shouldn't be in school. They probably should still be at home. So what is the point of all that earlier garbage? Whatever. It is what it is, man. Listen, I understand. People are sick of being at home. We're about to get into that in a minute. People are sick of being at home and they're looking for a way out. But the way out is not to undercut science and try to half at your way to this. Nah. You know what I'm saying? We need to have some good follow through here. We need to do what needs to be done so we can be done with this thing and move on. But the way that you do that is not rushing into things and hand-fistedly running into this and not doing it right. So there's that. Teachers want to come back, but they're scared. I understand that. I was watching CNN. Plenty of teachers on there say, hey, look, we want to come back to school. We're dying to come back to school, but we also want to be safe because, heck, I want to come back to school and teach your child, but I have a child. I have a child or children. I don't want them getting sick. I have a husband or a wife. I don't want he or she getting sick. You got to understand that. So the teachers are like, we need all the things we need to be able to come back. We need things to be right so that we can come and teach your children and not put ourselves at risk. Then you got kids who want to come back. This is interesting. Some of these kids need to get out of the house, and some of them, they feel like they're missing out on a high school experience. I want to speak to all of that. Here's what's interesting about that. I remember years ago, I worked at a school, I've talked about it on this show, called Allen Crest. It's a school for at-risk youth, right? So I had a guy come and speak to the kids. I'd have different speakers come in. And this guy worked for Children's Services. This brother was, pretty accomplished. He was real cool. And he grew up in a neighborhood, I want to say it was called Huff. Some of y'all know when I say that name, you probably be like, oh, I heard it. Huff was, I guess, a neighborhood in Cleveland. Really tough neighborhood. Really bad neighborhood. I've heard stories about that neighborhood, Huff, and they say it was a good place to get yourself you shot to death in the day or the night, And he grew up there, and he told the kids that when he was a kid, he said what saved me and what helped me be this guy you see today, I stayed away from the house. He said anything there was to do at school, I did it. He said, I did all the studying I could. He said, then I joined the chess club. Then I got into student government. Then I started playing football. He said, I did anything I could to stay outside of the house because there were things going on at home that were just too much. Too much. He said, so I stayed at school. He said, and that really helped, make him a well-rounded adult. This brother graduated at 16. Now, I'm not surprised. He stayed at school. He was always there. All the classes there were to do, he did. But that saved him. Now think about him right now. Because he's out there. Now this guy I'm talking about is grown. But a kid in that situation is all over. There's plenty of kids all over Columbus in that situation. What are they doing now? What are they doing? Because there's nowhere for them to go. They can't even go to the library. That's closed right now. So where's that kid going? He can't go anywhere. He is stuck at home. And I guarantee you that's probably going to shape his future in another direction. Because now he's there just having to soak up his reality, which may not be the best right now for whatever reason. So that's sad right there too. Some of these kids need to get out the house, for their own mental health, for their own well-being. And I'm not hating on parents. Parents are out there doing the best jobs you can do, but you're not teachers. And parents are not equipped with these skills, to teach the kids. They're not teachers. So it's rough. It's hard. And you've seen conflicts there too. You know what I'm saying? A lot of teachers are like, oh, you just want your babysitter back. A lot of parents are like, well, do your job. I see you at the movie theater. I see you at the club. Why can't you be at the school teaching my kid? Teach your own kid. It's your child. You had them. You teach them. I'm going to say as a parent, I really don't understand any parent sitting there being mad at teachers, because I always tell people, if you want your child to know something, you have to teach it to them at the house, at the home. That's where kids do their learning first. Or anything you want your kids to know, you're going to have to teach it to them. And then I don't understand these parents. Is this the first time that you ever did anything with your kid? Is this the first time you ever read a book to them? Or the first time that you ever did anything academic with your child? If so, that's a problem. That's a problem. And right now, you should be taking this time to maybe get more into that. Because if you think that your kid is going to get everything that they need from school, you are sadly mistaken. Okay? I've worked in schools all my adult life. And I am not hating on Columbus Public. I'm not hating on the private schools. But all I'm saying is, if you want your child to know something, you're going to have to teach it to them at the house. Please do not be relying on someone you've never met and you don't know from a can of paint. Maybe you've met them a few times at a parent-teacher meeting or whatever. Your child is not their number one priority. They probably got kids of their own. They got a life of their own. This is their job. So yeah, they're educators, and I'm not saying they don't take what they do seriously. I feel that. You got to take it seriously. But point being, that's your child. You have to take responsibility for that. So I don't understand a lot of these parents who are upset at the fact that now their kid is home and they got to sit there and do academic type stuff with their kid or try to teach their kid, because I'm like, I'd hope that you're doing this anyway. When it's regular times and the kids are going to regular school, you should always be making that effort to teach your kids things that you want them to know, whether it's life lessons or something that's academic. Anyway, moving on. I now want to talk about a legend that we lost this week. Prince Marky D of the Fat Boys. Let me tell you something. The Fat Boys. I love the Fat Boys. When I was a kid, there was well, first of all, let me start out by saying I've been an MC in my day. I got music. It's on YouTube. You check that out. I love hip hop. I love all types of music. Though I love rock and roll and you know what I'm saying, alternative rock and stuff like that. But as far as any music goes, hip hop was my first love. And two of the first albums I ever had was Run DMC's Raising Hell, and I had the Fat Boys, All You Can Eat. Oh my goodness. I used to love the Fat Boys. I still do love the Fat Boys. Always been a fan of the Fat Boys. Prince Marky D, he passed. He was a legendary Puerto Rican rapper, producer, radio host. I didn't even know he was Puerto Rican. I just knew he was the light-skinned brother in the Fat Boys. And that was my dude. A friend of mine who I grew up with, guys a little older than me, he used to always call me Prince Marky D because I would rap. But, you know, Prince Marky D was light-skinned, dark skin, but it was cool, you know, so he would always call me Prince Marky D. And I used to love the Fat Boy. I loved him. So, he produced songs. He produced stuff from Mariah Carey, Mary J. Blige, Jennifer Lopez. They had hits like All You Can Eat. Oh, come on, man. The Fat Boys are back. Jailhouse Rap. Some of these, man, I used to, the Fat Boys are back, and you know they can never be whack. I used to love, and you know they're the Fat Boys. I used to love the Fat Boys, and they were a huge group. No pun intended, because I read this article, and that's what the guy said. No pun intended, and no pun intended. They were one of the biggest groups of their day. They were. I mean, they truly were. They were in Crush Groove. They stole the show in that. They were great in that. Here's what a lot of people don't know. I was blown away to find this out. Madonna had asked Russell Simmons if they could open up for her. And he said, nah, but I got these white cats who rap. And he turned on to them, the Beastie Boys. So the Beastie Boys owe the Fat Boys for that look, for opening up for Madonna. And that's huge. And I'm not hating on the Beastie Boys. Oh, I love the Beastie Boys. If you watch this show, you know I love the Beastie Boys. You know what I'm saying? Rest in peace, MCA. Come on now. I love the Beastie Boys. But it's interesting how, you know, they kind of got that gig because Russell was like, nah, don't worry about the Fat Boys, but I got these white guys. And really, at first I was like, maybe that was Russell hating, but I don't think he's hating. I think Russell was kind of like, well, the Fat Boys are huge. I'm trying to get these guys out right now. They doing their thing. My God, are they doing their thing right now? Let me get this other act off the ground. Like, you know what, they're busy, but I got these other guys who are really good. And they were really good. I mean, they were exceptionally good. They were the Beastie Boys. So there it is. But to think that Madonna asked for the Fat Boys. That's what's up. So that lets you know how big they were. Man, he's gone. We lost a real one. You know what I'm saying? Prince Marky D, they say he passed away at the age of 52. Just a good guy, a great guy, man, and he will be missed. He will be missed because, I mean, they had some hits. And I guess at a time, you know what, body positivity or body consciousness wasn't even a thing back then. But you had three brothers who, you know, they almost, I don't know, did they glorify being overweight? Maybe, especially with songs like All You Can Eat and stuff like that. But it was still just, that was a time, though, when hip-hop was fun. It was light. It was kind of family-oriented. And a group like the Fat Boys could thrive, and they did. And it was a beautiful thing, and I was there to bear witness to it. So, you know what I'm saying? Rest in heaven, sir. You will be missed. Prince Marky D, Fat Boys. All right. Now that I've talked about a legend who I will miss, let's talk about a legend who I want to talk about Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh, the de facto leader of the Republican Party, the GOP. He passed away not too long ago. I think they said this last Wednesday that his wife had got on his show and announced that he had passed away. He was battling cancer, so he ended up losing that battle. Rush was a trip. He refused to admit that white supremacy exists. He was on the morning show, and Charlemagne the God, that was his number one thing. He was like, look, we got you here on this show, and I'm not going to mess around with this. You know, there ain't no sense of us even sitting here talking unless you can sit there and say, and let it be known and go ahead and admit it, that white supremacy is a problem, and it's something that white people and black people need to deal with, and He ain't want to do none of that. His whole thing was, white supremacy is a construct of the left, and a construct of Black Lives Matter, and blah, 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 blah. So that's that garbage. What do you expect from this dude? If you know this guy like I know this guy, I've been listening to this guy accidentally for a million years. I used to work with a guy who listened to him religiously. He used to listen to Rush Limbaugh every day. And this is a guy who normalized and popularized hatred. Let me say that again. He normalized and popularized hatred. He has. I mean, this dude has done all types of outrage. He was the first or maybe the best political shock jock ever. I mean, this guy was a trip, man. He called Kamala Harris a hoe. What else? He called somebody a slut. It might have been the woman who had the issues with Judge Kavanaugh. This guy's a trip, man. He said racist stuff. He said misogynistic stuff. And some of that I'm going to get into later. When I say this last quote, I mean, come on, man. This guy was he was loathsome. He was horrible. He was egregious. He was mean. He was nasty. Like I said, he popularized hate. He was on for 32 years for 3 hours a day. Think about that. 32 years, this guy for 3 hours a day pumped hate into that Republican base. People wonder why we got here. Why we got to the place to where these people are emboldened with their racist views and their racist opinion and their misogynistic views and all that other stuff. This guy was a part of that. A huge part of that. Rush Limbaugh, let me tell you something. I got a buddy. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Doc Giggs, my man. Hey, and he watches the show. What up, my brother? He religiously used to listen to Rush Limbaugh. And he said, Ed, I want to hear how the other side thinks. And I said, man, I ain't even mad at you. I said, that guy right there is like I said, he is the de facto leader of the Republican Party. He is the GOP. So if you want to know how all these racist right-wingers are thinking, listen to Rush. Because they getting it from him. His followers, they call themselves ditto heads. You know what that means, right? Ditto. Ditto just means a repeat. What is a ditto? When you go to a copy machine and you copy something off, what do? You're copying off dittos. And that's what it was. So, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Ronald Reagan called him the #1 voice of conservatism in America. Think about that. Ronald Reagan, who Republicans already called the conservative god, he called Rush Limbaugh the #1 voice of conservatism in America. That lets you know this guy was a beast. He was a demon. Because other evil people thought that he was great, you know? So, there's that. Here's the last thing I ended on. If you really want to know what kind of opposite of a class act this dude was, in reference to George Floyd, he's going to say, I can breathe because I follow the law. That's what he's in. That's what he's in. In reference to George Floyd, having his neck knelt on for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. That's what Rush Limbaugh says. I can breathe because I follow the law. So the guy was a piece of garbage. You see people everywhere. Some people are like, oh, some people missed him. Some people didn't. Some people say this. Some people say that. My whole thing is good riddance to bad rubbish. That's all I can say about it. Will I mourn the man? No, sorry, Bob, I will not. That guy was, he was loathsome. He was egregious. He was terrible. We don't need him. We don't need him. You know what I'm saying? So I hate to say that. And you know what? So I've went on record on this show and saying all life is precious. And I do believe that. All life is precious. But some people have had a case of just doing too much. And he's done too much for me to really say. I can't sit here and act like he was a good guy. Or he was a class actor. He was a stand-up dude. I can't give him any of that. Because he peddled in falsehoods. And he didn't care about people. He was no type of human. If you're a human, you act humane. He did not have a humane bone in his body. You can't spew hatred like this and care about your fellow man or woman. Anyway, moving on. I'm not done yet. Trump urging the GOP to get rid of Mitch McConnell. Ooh. Trump called him a dour, sullen, unsmiling political hack. Ain't that something? Mitch McConnell, here's what he did. He repeated a Ronald Reagan quote, which is, thou shalt not talk bad about other Republicans. That lets you know right now, or right there, the stronghold that Donald Trump has on the GOP. So don't get it twisted. He ain't went nowhere. He's still running that party. More Americans believe that Joe Biden very responsible for the Capitol riot than Mike Pence. Wrap your head around that. More Americans believe that Joe Biden is responsible for the Capitol riots and more responsible than Mike Pence? That's why sometimes when it comes to America, I'm ready to pack my bags and bounce. That is stupid. But whatever. That was a real poll. CBS called, maybe this is why. CBS called 50 GOP senators and asked, did Joe Biden win or do you agree with Trump's assessment? 5 said yes, Joe won, and 45 did not answer the question. That's where we're at. Out of 50 grown men, we had 45 who were cowering in their boots and scared of Trump. So scared they can't even let it come out of their mouth, which everybody else on the planet knows that he lost. He's an abysmal failure. It is what it is. My time is up. Thank you for spending this 30 minutes with me. This has been Urban Politics. I am Fizzhead. Music, we'll do it again. As always, see you around like a donut.